The stars above Earth shimmered like a silent audience. But tonight, they seemed to hold their breath. Something had arrived. Something not of this world. It began with a single voice, a transmission that no human had expected to hear. It was not a distress call, not a threat. Instead, it was an offer. "We will guard humanity," the voice said, calm and strange. "But first, you must answer one question." The signal came from deep space, traveling faster than light, carrying a tone that felt alive. In underground command centers, satellites and listening posts, humans froze as they heard it. Not just scientists. Not just military leaders. Everyone, because within hours, the message spread across the globe. But no one understood the meaning of the question. The voice continued. "Your species has come far. You have survived wars, plagues, and your own mistakes. You are ready for protection. Ready for more than your small blue world. But tell us, why should we?" The words felt heavy. They were not asking if humans wanted protection. They already offered it. They were asking why humanity was worth saving. In the silence that followed, millions of people stood still. Television screens flickered. Radio stations went quiet. It felt as if the whole planet had stopped breathing. The question wasn't simple. And the aliens, or whatever they were, gave no more information. No hint of what answer they sought. At the United Nations emergency session, world leaders gathered within hours. The air smelled of fear and hope mixed together. Generals whispered about alien technology, ships hiding beyond the moon, unseen yet felt. Scientists debated whether the message came from artificial minds or living beings. But no one could deny one truth: whoever spoke had the power to reach Earth without being seen. And maybe, the power to destroy it. Yet, they didn't. They only waited for an answer. Down on the streets, ordinary people watched the sky, searching for movement in the stars. Some prayed. Some panicked. Some recorded videos, promising to answer the question themselves, even if governments failed. But one thing became clear: this was not just a test for leaders. It was a test for all of humanity. Hours turned to days. The mysterious voice spoke again, always the same. "We will guard humanity. But first, answer. Why should we?" News agencies reported strange things, satellites going offline for minutes at a time, only to return with no damage. Strange energy readings over Antarctica. A fleet of meteors changing direction mid-flight, deflected by an unseen force, before they could enter Earth's atmosphere. It was as if the visitors were proving their power while still waiting. In a small observatory in the Nevada desert, a lone scientist named Dr. Kalen Wright sat staring at the stars. His hair was unkempt, his eyes tired, but his mind sharp. He had been part of SETI for years, searching for proof of intelligent life. And now that it had spoken, humanity had no answer ready. He whispered to himself, "What do they want to hear? Our history, our dreams, our mistakes." The night was silent, until the observatory lights flickered. Static ran across his instruments. Then the same voice spoke, not through the global broadcast, but directly into his lab. "You listen more than others. You see more. But you do not yet understand. The question is not about what you have done. It is about what you will do." Dr. Wright froze. They were speaking to him. The voice continued, softer now. "Time is short. Others will fail. You must speak for your kind." And then, silence. Wright stared at his console, heart pounding. The stars outside seemed to move, though he knew it was impossible. But deep down, he felt it. Something was watching. Something waiting for humanity's response. Meanwhile, far above Earth, hidden in the dark between planets, ships the size of mountains floated silently. Their hulls shimmered like liquid mirrors, bending light around them. They did not reveal themselves. They only waited. And Earth had no answer yet. But time was running out. Because the voice would not wait forever. The next day, the world tried to answer. At the United Nations headquarters, leaders from nearly every nation gathered inside the Great Assembly Hall. Cameras broadcast the event to billions. The air felt heavy, like the weight of history itself pressed against the walls. They had agreed on one thing: humanity had to respond. But what to say? What words could convince beings beyond imagination to protect an entire species? The Secretary General stood first. His voice shook slightly but grew stronger with each word. "To those who listen among the stars," he said, "we thank you for your offer. Humanity is young. We have made mistakes. But we have also learned. We build bridges where there were once walls. We explore not only our planet but the universe beyond. We seek knowledge, peace, and understanding. If you guard us, you guard a species that dreams of greatness, not just for itself, but for all life." Silence followed. The hall held its breath. Then, the voice came again. Calm, cold, final, unacceptable. The room shook as the sound echoed through every speaker, every broadcast system. Lights flickered. A sharp tone cut through the air like a blade. And then, darkness. For 7 minutes, the entire planet went offline. Satellites, power grids, communications, everything. The world hung in silence and fear, blind and deaf, as if reality itself had been switched off. Then, as suddenly as it began, everything came back. Screens lit up. Power returned. The voice spoke once more. "Try again. But remember, your answer determines more than your survival." And it ended. No one in the hall spoke for a long moment. Then chaos erupted. Leaders shouted. Advisors argued. Some demanded a show of strength. Military satellites armed with nuclear weapons were moved into higher alert. Others warned against aggression, saying it might provoke a war humanity could never win. But far away from politics, in the Nevada desert, Dr. Kalen Wright stared at the sky. He had heard the voice differently. Quieter. Almost disappointed. "What do you want from us?" he whispered to the stars. "What is the answer?" That night, as he worked alone in the observatory, the lights flickered again. His instruments glitched. Then, the voice returned, soft, like a secret. "Their words speak of hope," it said. "But their actions speak of fear. Do you understand the difference, Kalen Wright?" He froze. They knew his name. "You have seen your world," the voice continued. "You know its flaws. You know its promise. But tell me, why do you fight for it? Why do you fight for them?" Kalen swallowed hard. Because we're more than what we are now. Because we can be better." The voice was silent. Then, "Better? But for what purpose?" Kalen had no answer. Not yet. Across Earth, strange events began to occur. Over the Pacific, a storm shifted course unnaturally, saving an island nation from destruction. In orbit, a falling satellite slowed and drifted safely into the ocean instead of crashing into a city. And yet, a small mining outpost on the lunar surface reported seeing something vast, metallic, and alien pass by, silently, before vanishing into the black. Were these gestures of warning? Or protection? No one knew. At the United Nations, a second response was planned. This time, a scientist, Dr. Evelyn Park, would speak. She was calm, intelligent, and believed she understood what the beings wanted to hear. On live broadcast, she stood and spoke clearly. "We are not asking for protection because we are afraid. We are asking because we wish to learn from you. To grow. To travel the stars. To bring light to the dark. To create, not destroy. To share knowledge and life with those who come after us." Again, silence. Then, the voice replied. Closer. But still, incomplete. The ground trembled. Oceans roared. Somewhere in the Indian Ocean, an entire island vanished beneath the waves, swallowed by a sudden, impossible vortex. The voice spoke again, sharper now. "Final attempt. Or judgment begins." And with that, the transmission ended once more. In his observatory, Kalen stared at the sky. His hands trembled. He knew, somehow, that the final answer was not about Earth's past. Not about its technology, or knowledge, or dreams. It was about something deeper. Something only humanity could define. And he had 3 days to find it. The world did not sleep. News channels spoke in hushed voices, scientists argued on live broadcasts, and ordinary people stared at the stars as if answers might appear in their patterns. 3 days. That was the time humanity had been given. In the Nevada desert, Dr. Kalen Wright had not left his observatory. His face was pale, his hands unsteady, but his mind raced. He replayed the alien words in his head, again and again. Closer. But still incomplete. The meaning burned in his mind. The previous answers had been about survival, peace, and knowledge. Yet the beings wanted something deeper. Something that made humanity worth saving. Not just capable of surviving. Late into the night, the lights of his observatory flickered once more. Static hummed in the air. Then the voice returned, quiet, direct, speaking only to him. Kalen Wright. You seek the answer. But you do not see what is before you. Kalen swallowed. Then show me. A sudden beam of light pierced through the observatory dome. It was not bright, soft, silver, almost like moonlight, but it pulsed with strange rhythm. The room around him dissolved into darkness, and Kalen found himself standing elsewhere. The air felt thin. The ground beneath his feet smooth like glass. Above him, a sky of endless stars stretched into infinity. And in front of him, a presence. Not a form. Not a creature. A shimmer of light and shadow, shifting between shapes, humanoid, then alien, then something beyond both. You are inside a vessel, the voice said. One of many. We have been watching your kind since the first fire lit your night. We have seen your wars, and your mercy, your cruelty, and your courage. Kalen stared, awestruck. Then why ask the question? You already know who we are. The light pulsed softly. Knowing what you are, is not knowing why you must endure. Kalen frowned. Isn't survival enough? Isn't hope enough? Survival is instinct. Hope is a shadow. Purpose is what endures beyond both. The words sank deep. Humanity did not just need to prove it could live. It needed to prove why its existence mattered, what it would give back to the universe. Then, without warning, Kalen was back in his observatory. The beam of light vanished. The night returned. But now, his heart beat with urgency. He had seen their vessel. He had spoken with one of them. And he knew, humanity's next answer had to be more than a plea. It had to be a promise. The next day, strange events unfolded across Earth. Entire cities reported seeing shadows in the clouds, shapes too symmetrical to be natural. In orbit, a private telescope captured an image of something massive beyond the moon. Smooth, silver, the size of a small continent, before the image was wiped from all servers. People grew restless. Some rioted, demanding governments surrender. Others formed groups, praying aloud, sending messages into the sky. The fear was no longer of invasion. It was of judgment. At the United Nations, panic spread through the assembly. The failed answers had already cost lives. What would happen if the final one failed? Dr. Evelyn Park stood, shaken but calm. The answer cannot come from this room, she said. Not from politicians, not from generals. It must come from someone who truly believes in humanity's purpose. Someone who has seen its light and its darkness, and still chooses to fight for it. Across the room, Kalen Wright's name was mentioned for the first time. Whispers turned to agreement. Within hours, a delegation was sent to bring him to New York. The journey was tense. Kalen stared out the window of the transport jet as it cut through the night sky, thinking of the vessel, the shifting figure, the words that burned in his mind. Purpose. Not survival. Not hope. Purpose. When he arrived at the United Nations, the world was already watching. Billions of eyes. Billions of hopes. And perhaps, billions of fears. Kalen stepped to the podium. The silence was absolute. Even the air felt still. He opened his mouth to speak, but stopped. Because in that moment, every screen across Earth flickered. Every broadcast cut. Every light dimmed. The voice had returned. Speak carefully, Kalen Wright. This is humanity's final chance. And then, darkness. The world waited. Kalen took a deep breath. He was about to answer. But somewhere deep in his chest, he knew, words alone might not be enough. Darkness wrapped the earth, as if the stars themselves were waiting for his words. The alien voice had spoken, giving humanity its final chance. And Kalen Wright stood alone at the podium, billions watching, his heart pounding like a drum. He swallowed hard, then began. Whoever you are, you've seen our flaws. You've seen our wars, our mistakes, our greed. And yet, you still gave us this chance. Why? Because you know something we sometimes forget. He paused, letting the silence stretch. We are not finished. Humanity is not what it could be. Not yet. But we are more than what we were. And we will be more than what we are now. That is our promise, not just to you, but to the universe itself. To leave it better than we found it. To build, to learn, to protect, not only ourselves but every voice that dares to dream under the stars. The room was silent. The world was silent. Kalen's words hung in the air like a fragile thread between survival and extinction. Then, the alien voice spoke. Better. But not enough. Kalen's breath caught. The lights flickered again, but this time they did not return. The floor trembled. Outside, the sky glowed with unnatural light. You speak of promise, the voice continued, now resonating from every direction. But promises are wind. Purpose is forged in action. Show us. Suddenly, the chamber dissolved around Kalen. The walls vanished. The floor beneath his feet turned transparent. He was standing in open space, Earth floating below, stars burning above. Around him, massive alien vessels shimmered into view, their hulls bending light, their surfaces glowing faintly like living metal. One of them pulsed with energy, projecting images around him: war, hunger, greed, cruelty, scenes from Earth's history, its worst moments. Then, just as suddenly, the images shifted: rescue, sacrifice, discovery, art, compassion, humanity's best. The voice spoke again. Your species holds both. But one will decide your future. Now choose. Which path will define you? Kalen's pulse thundered in his ears. How? How do I prove it? The voice answered coldly. With more than words. And then, everything went black. Kalen woke on a barren, alien landscape. The air was thin but breathable. The ground was silver gray, covered in strange ridges that pulsed with faint light. Above, alien vessels hovered silently, watching. Nearby, others appeared, humans, soldiers, scientists, leaders, civilians, each as confused as Kalen. They had been taken from different parts of the world, selected. A figure of light appeared before them, humanoid yet shifting, as if made of pure energy. You have been chosen to represent your species, the figure said. Not by speaking, by surviving, and by choosing. Without warning, the ground shifted and broke apart, revealing a deep chasm of glowing blue energy. Across it stood a massive structure, half machine, half cathedral, pulsing with alien light. A bridge of shimmering force appeared, narrow and unstable. Beyond this bridge lies your test, the figure said. It will show us not what you claim to be, but what you are. One of the soldiers stepped forward. What happens if we fail? The figure's form flickered, almost like a ripple of amusement, or warning. Then humanity ends. And the universe forgets you. Silence. Then, without a word, Kalen stepped forward onto the bridge. The crossing was like walking on glass suspended over infinity. Each step made the bridge tremble, the blue energy below swirling violently as if alive. Behind him, the others followed, hesitant, afraid, but driven by something deeper. Halfway across, the bridge pulsed violently. A section shattered, dropping 2 soldiers into the chasm. They screamed, and vanished into light. No bodies. No sound. Just gone. Kalen forced himself forward, every muscle tense, every breath sharp. The others pressed on behind him, eyes wide with fear. Finally, they reached the structure. Its doors opened silently, revealing a massive chamber filled with alien symbols and glowing panels. At the center stood a pedestal, and on it, a small sphere of light. The figure of energy appeared again. This is the core of the test. It is a choice. You may take the sphere, but only one may leave with it. The others will be lost. Or, you may leave it behind. If you do, no one survives. The chamber went silent. The meaning was clear, someone had to take it. But taking it meant sacrificing everyone else. Kalen stared at the sphere. His hands shook. Around him, fear and anger spread through the group. Some whispered. Some argued. One soldier reached for his weapon. The voice spoke again, softer now. Purpose is not survival. Purpose is what you choose when survival tempts you most. Kalen understood. Slowly, he stepped back from the pedestal. No, he said quietly. No one takes it. The soldier shouted, Are you insane? We die if we don't. Kalen shook his head. We prove our worth by refusing. By choosing each other over ourselves. That is what purpose means. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, the light from the pedestal grew blinding, until everything vanished. Kalen woke again, this time back at the United Nations. The world around him was intact. The lights bright. The air steady. And outside the windows, the sky shimmered as massive alien vessels revealed themselves fully. Vast, elegant, stretching across the horizon. The voice spoke one last time. Purpose accepted. Humanity will be guarded. But now, it must live up to its choice. And then the ships vanished, leaving Earth staring at an empty sky. The sky was empty again, but Earth was no longer the same. Billions had witnessed the alien ships, colossal shapes glimmering like silver continents, before vanishing into the void. Their final words echoed across every mind. Humanity will be guarded. But now, it must live up to its choice. For a single day, celebrations erupted. People danced in the streets, hugged strangers, and sent messages of hope across the globe. Social media called it the Day of Purpose. News anchors declared a new era for mankind. But then, the changes began. In the Nevada desert, Kalen Wright watched reports with growing unease. Earth had been spared, yes. But at what cost? The aliens had said nothing about how they would guard humanity, or what living up to its choice meant. That answer came within 48 hours. It began with the sky turning silver, not everywhere, but in thin bands that rippled like waves around the equator. Scientists called it quantum shielding, a layer of light energy that surrounded Earth like a second atmosphere. Meteors that had been on course to enter Earth's orbit simply dissolved upon touching it. Communications satellites passed through unharmed. At first, people cheered. We're safe now, they said. Nothing can touch us. But then came the restrictions. A cargo ship bound for Mars vanished the moment it crossed the shield. No explosion. No wreckage. Just gone. Hours later, the alien voice returned, not in full broadcast, but as a simple, calm transmission. You will not leave your world. Not yet. You are not ready. The message shook humanity to its core. Colonies on the Moon and Mars were forced to rely on limited supplies. Terraforming projects were abandoned. Even asteroid mining, critical to Earth's economy, was halted overnight. Guarded, it seemed, did not mean free. At the United Nations, leaders gathered again, this time, with fear returning to their voices. "This is a prison," one delegate argued. "We can't travel. We can't explore. They've locked us inside our own planet." Kalen stood silently, listening to the rising anger. Some demanded resistance, building weapons powerful enough to pierce the shield. Others warned such defiance would provoke annihilation. Finally, the Secretary-General turned to Kalen. "You spoke for humanity before. Speak now. What do they want from us?" Kalen hesitated. The answer burned in his mind, but he feared saying it aloud. "They want us to prove we deserve to leave," he said softly. "Not by power. Not by knowledge. But by what we become." The room fell silent. The following weeks revealed just how closely humanity was being watched. Wars halted overnight, drones malfunctioned, missiles failed to launch, and military satellites went dark. Entire naval fleets found themselves stranded at sea as propulsion systems failed simultaneously, forcing rescues by smaller ships. Any attempt at aggression, toward another nation or toward the sky, was stopped before it began. It was as if the alien guardians had rewritten the rules of the world. But it wasn't only weapons. Factories that produced toxic waste saw machinery fail without warning. Corporations engaged in corruption experienced data purges, entire networks wiped clean by unknown forces. And when a small group of extremists attempted to build a bomb in secret, their entire compound simply vanished. Not destroyed. Erased. Kalen began receiving transmissions again, this time, faint whispers during the night, almost like dreams. "Your kind will be tested," the alien voice murmured. "Not by war. Not by conquest. But by choice." Kalen asked, "What kind of choice?" The voice was silent for a moment. Then, "The kind that reveals whether you are worthy of the stars." Around the world, strange anomalies began appearing. Cities shimmering with energy fields, deserts blooming with sudden life, ancient ruins glowing as if awakening. Some called them miracles. Others, warnings. In the Sahara, an oasis formed overnight, crystal clear water flowing where none had existed in centuries. But when local militias tried to claim it for profit, the entire pool vanished, leaving only sand. In the Arctic, a research station received a sudden surge of alien energy, providing unlimited clean power, but only after scientists pledged to share their findings freely. With all nations. It became clear, the aliens were not simply guarding humanity. They were shaping it. One night, Kalen was summoned again, not by humans, but by light. The observatory dissolved around him, and he stood once more in the presence of the alien figure. "You struggle," the being said. "You celebrate your survival, yet fear your chains. Do you not understand what is being offered?" Kalen clenched his fists. "You're forcing us to change." "No," the being replied calmly. "We are giving you the chance to choose change, or extinction. One path leads to the stars. The other, to silence." Kalen stared, anger and awe twisting inside him. "And if we succeed?" The being's form pulsed brighter. "Then you will not only travel the stars, you will stand beside us. Not as guarded, but as guardians." The words struck deep. Guardians. Humanity was not being prepared for safety. It was being prepared for duty. When Kalen awoke back on Earth, dawn was breaking. News reports spoke of new anomalies, new miracles, new warnings. But Kalen understood now. The question was no longer why the aliens would guard humanity. The question was whether humanity could rise high enough to guard the universe in return. The world was changing, faster than anyone could have imagined. The alien guardians had made their intentions clear through quiet control and impossible miracles. Wars had ceased, corruption was punished instantly, and acts of compassion were rewarded with resources no human technology could explain. But then came the disaster. It began deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, where a fault line, dormant for centuries, roared awake. Seismic stations reported pressure building at impossible speed. Within hours, a chain of undersea volcanoes threatened to trigger a super tsunami capable of wiping out entire coastlines across Asia and the Americas. Scientists, governments, and military forces scrambled. Evacuation orders spread across nations. Satellites tracked the swelling ocean. And everywhere, people whispered the same question. Will the Guardians stop it? Kalen Wright sat in the United Nations Command Center, watching live feeds of coastal cities. Hundreds of millions of lives were at risk. But the sky above remained silent. No alien light. No interference. They've stopped meteors, weapons, even storms, a general muttered. Why aren't they stopping this? Kalen had no answer. But deep inside, he feared he knew. This is the test, he said quietly. The first wave struck a small island in the Pacific, obliterating it in seconds. The death toll climbed immediately. Panic spread across the globe. People screamed into the sky, begging the aliens to intervene. But nothing came. Kalen stood and faced the global leaders in the command room. They're watching. Not to see if we survive, but to see how we face this. One delegate snapped, so we're supposed to stop an ocean with our bare hands? Kalen shook his head. No. We're supposed to prove who we are when there's no one to save us but ourselves. Within hours, humanity mobilized like never before. Nations shared resources freely, ignoring borders and politics. Massive airlifts began, moving people from high-risk zones to safe areas. Private corporations opened transport fleets to government control. Scientists collaborated across time zones to design emergency barriers, giant inflatable walls, floating platforms, even energy field experiments based on fragments of alien tech. Across the world, volunteers poured into coastal cities, helping strangers escape. Some stayed behind to guide evacuations, knowing they would not survive. And through it all, the sky stayed silent. Kalen worked without rest, relaying satellite data to evacuation teams, coordinating with scientists, and delivering updates to world leaders. Yet with each passing hour, the waves grew taller. Then came the largest, hundreds of meters high, stretching across the horizon, moving towards Southeast Asia. It would strike within 30 minutes. Tens of millions still remained in its path. A desperate call came from the evacuation zone. One of the inflatable barriers had failed. The wave would reach inland cities, wiping out everything in its path. Call them, a delegate shouted. Call the Guardians. Beg them. But Kalen stood firm. No. If we ask, we fail the test. We have to do this ourselves. On the ground, chaos turned to unity. Entire navies lined up along the wave's path, not to stop it, but to break its force. Aircraft flew dangerously low, dropping shock bombs designed to disrupt its shape. Engineers flooded coastal tunnels to redirect water into underground chambers. And then, just as the wave loomed high above the cities, it began to break. Not by alien power. By human hands. The tsunami struck, smaller than expected, its force divided, its reach reduced. Destruction was still immense, but millions were saved. When the sea finally calmed, silence fell across the world. People waited, exhausted, grieving, but alive. Waiting for a sign. It came at sunrise. The sky shimmered. A single vessel, massive, silver, elegant, appeared over the Pacific. Its reflection danced on the calm ocean below. And then, the voice spoke, not in anger, not in judgment. In the face of death, you chose unity. You chose sacrifice. You chose life, not only for yourselves, but for each other. This is purpose. This is worth. The vessel pulsed with light, and then hundreds more appeared, spanning the sky like a second constellation. Kalen stared upward, barely able to breathe. The voice spoke again. But your journey is not complete. One final test remains, not of survival, but of destiny. Will you stand as guardians, or fall as forgotten? And then, the ships vanished, leaving Earth trembling, not from disaster, but from what came next. The world was still reeling from the great tsunami when the alien voice returned, calm yet heavy, like a final judgment. One last test. Not of survival. Of destiny. Kalen Wright stood in the United Nations command chamber as the words echoed across every broadcast channel. His heart pounded. Humanity had faced disaster, united, and survived. What could possibly be left? Then, a new image filled the sky. Not Earth. Not the alien vessels. But a distant planet, a scarred, dying world bathed in red light. Massive cities lay in ruin. Fires burned across its surface. The voice spoke again. This is Kether. Its people called for help. We answered. But we will not intervene. The decision is yours. Kalen frowned. Ours? What do you mean? The reply was immediate. You may choose to save them. Or not. But know this. Saving them will come at great cost. Refusing will come at a greater one. The image of Kether grew clearer, towers collapsing, skies choked with ash, oceans boiling from volcanic heat. Strange shapes moved among the ruins, alien beings, fragile and desperate. Their faces, though inhuman, reflected fear Kalen recognized all too well. Debate erupted across the world. We can't even reach them, military leaders argued. Our ships can't pass the shield. Scientists countered, the Guardians will open a path, if we choose to go. But others raised darker questions. Why save them? They're strangers. What if they're dangerous? What if this is a trap? Kalen stood silent through it all, his thoughts racing. Then the voice spoke again, this time, directly to him. Your species stands at the edge of purpose. Will you guard life, even when it is not your own? The next day, humanity voted, not through governments, but through a global referendum. For the first time in history, nearly the entire planet spoke as one. The answer was yes. Within hours, the sky shimmered. A massive portal, blue and silver, rippling like liquid glass, opened above Earth. The alien voice spoke once more. The path is open. But only those who choose to go may pass. And they may not return. Hundreds volunteered, engineers, medics, pilots, scientists, soldiers. Kalen was among them. They boarded the largest human spacecraft ever built, a vessel enhanced by alien modifications, shimmering with faint light. It rose through the atmosphere, passed through the shield, and entered the portal. The journey was like falling through a dream. Stars stretched and bent. Space itself seemed alive. Then, with a sudden flash, the ship emerged above Kether. The world below was worse than the images had shown. Cities collapsing, skies burning, quakes tearing the land apart. Alien guidance systems took over, directing landing modules to safe zones, if any could be called safe. Kalen's team descended into a ruined metropolis, the ground trembling beneath their feet. And then they saw them, the Ketheri. Thin, tall, with skin like polished stone and glowing eyes of deep violet, they moved with exhausted grace, helping their wounded even as their world crumbled. Their voices carried no words humans could understand, yet their fear, their hope, was unmistakable. Kalen and his team worked without rest, setting up emergency shelters, deploying alien-provided medical pods, and coordinating mass evacuations to the few stable regions left on the planet. But it wasn't enough. The quakes grew stronger. Lava split the land. A final shockwave was coming, one that would end Kether completely. Kalen stood on the surface as the ground shook beneath him, staring at the sky. The human ship hovered above, ready to extract as many survivors as possible, but only thousands, not millions. Then the alien voice returned, not from the sky, but from within his mind. This is the moment. Will you save as many as you can? Or all of them, at the cost of your lives? Kalen understood. The ship could be used to stabilize the planet, just barely, but doing so would drain its core and destroy it in the process. None of the humans would return. He turned to his team. We can leave with a few thousand, or we can stay and save millions, knowing we won't go home. What do we choose? There was silence. Then, one by one, his crew nodded. Kalen spoke into the calm, activate planetary stabilizers. All power to containment beams. The ship descended, beams of silver light lancing into the ground. Tremors slowed. Fissures sealed. The planet began to calm. Inside, Kalen felt a strange peace. They had done it, not for themselves, but for another world. Moments later, the ship's core overloaded. Light engulfed everything. Kalen opened his eyes. Not to fire. Not to death. To stars. Endless stars. And before him, hundreds of alien vessels, each pulsing with light. The Ketheri stood beside him, whole and alive. The voice spoke one last time, no longer distant, no longer cold. You have chosen not survival. Not hope. But purpose. Humanity is no longer guarded. Humanity is guardian. The stars around him brightened. A new horizon opened, a universe waiting. And Kalen Wright smiled, knowing the future had finally begun.